do want to show that superdelegate, the whole enchilada gap between the two of them. Take a look at this, okay? Now, that's what superdelegates factored in. Do we have one without the superdelegates, Pam? Because that shows quite a little bit of a different thing. You take that away, it is a little bit closer than it would normally appear. And that is why Bernie Sanders says, yeah, I have a very credible shot at this. And it raises another interesting question that no matter how you gauge that, with or without superdelegates, let's say without for the time being, of course, easier said than done, could the Democrats be the ones facing the contested convention? Well, when DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz was talking to our Bill Hemmer today, I think she did not think that was the case.
Will there be the possibility now of a contested Democratic convention in Philadelphia at the end of July?
No, there won't be a contested convention. I expect that when we get to the end of our primary nominating contest between primaries and caucuses, that we will have a presumptive nominee before we get to the convention.
All right, I'm not a lawyer, but Harlan Hill, who is a big Bernie Sanders supporter, Harlan, maybe you are, but she said we will have a presumptive nominee. Now, presumptive doesn't necessarily mean someone who already has, in the Democrats' case, the 2,383 delegates he or she would need. So there's a big difference, isn't there?
Well, this comes as no surprise to me. I mean, when we look at the track record of the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz in particular, they've done everything in their power to really suppress Bernie Sanders and his supporters. In fact, she said recently on CNN that superdelegates were in place, unelected superdelegates were in place, in order to keep out grassroots supporters from challenging establishment Democrats. So she's on the record explaining exactly why she thinks that someone like Hillary Clinton is a shoo-in for the nomination.
You know, I talked earlier today, Harlan, to a superdelegate for Bernie Sanders. I guess there are a few. And he said, I resent being a superdelegate. I don't think we should have them, even though in his case he was one for Bernie Sanders. But his point was, I guess, that they've come along with this. He thinks there should be a role for prominent party types, representatives to play, but not in this sort of self-anointed role of picking the next nominee for President of the United States. What do you make of that?
Well, really the place for establishment Democrats to make their voice heard is in an endorsement. And it's not in overruling the will of the people. And that's what a superdelegate is. And so I would agree with the delegate that you spoke with, that his role should not exist. It's the Democratic Party sees him as a safeguard against the will of the people. And so it really makes me wonder, I mean, is the Democratic Party, really the undemocratic party? Is this institutionalized structure that's really meant to keep out grassroots Democrats? If you believe Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's the case.
You know, I'm wondering then, if Sanders wants to stay in this to the very end, and it sounds like what Debbie Wasserman Schultz is saying, it ain't happening. So let's say it isn't happening. Would you be okay with Hillary Clinton? Under
no circumstances.
Then who would you vote for? Who would you vote for? Or would you sit it out?
Well, I could stay home. I know I've spoken to a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters that have said that they might stay home. They're predominantly young Democrats that had previously supported Barack Obama. I am in that camp.
Wow.
So we may either stay home or we might cross over for the right Republican.
Who's the right Republican?
Well, we'll have to see. Even if you look at somebody like...
There are two prominent ones. There are two prominent that come to mind.
Well, even if you look at a candidate like Donald Trump, who people really think are, they think he's on the far right. But when you look at what he says about, foreign policy and doing some nation building at home, and what he says about labor and trade, I think he can convince a lot of Democrats to cross over for him, believe it or not.
Very interesting. Harlan, a real pleasure having you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much.